Hello, and welcome to the Biodiesel Magazine podcast. I am your host, Anna Simet. Today, I am joined by Kristof Reiter. He is CEO, principal trader, senior consultant, and founder of Reiter Companies. Kristof, thanks so much for joining us today, and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Anna. It's a pleasure to be here.
You bet. So let's start today. Maybe you could tell our listeners about Reiter Companies and what you do there, and what your main focuses are.
So the Reiter Companies were first started in 2007, originally as a consulting shop that specialized in biofuel production chemistry. At that point, it was really a biodiesel game. We were a few years into George G.W. Bush's first $1 per gallon blender's tax credit. At that point, there were a lot of small startups, and there were a lot of companies struggling with moving from a first generation technology, which was really designed to run super low FFA virgin feedstock, to a more flexible arrangement where they could take a little higher FFA, be it used cooking oil or poultry fat or off-spec tallow. But when I first got in the industry as a consultant, that was kind of the challenge that we were focused on. From there, it kind of migrated into more general C-suite business consulting services, putting in place supply and offtake contracts for various companies and serving kind of an interim CEO role in a few cases. But that was kind of the 2007 to 2010 period when the industry was really in its infancy. From 2010 onward, we still continued doing consulting projects for select clients each year, both on the fuel side, but then more and more over the years on the used cooking oil side, the rendering side of things. In 2010, roughly, we started trading feedstock on behalf of a few of our clients. That kind of launched our trading division, which has grown substantially since 2010. We trade used cooking oil primarily, but we do trade some other products as well, some byproducts of biofuels, some other feedstocks. If you have something that's fat and oil related, we're happy to talk to you about it, basically, and try to help you. In 2016, as the EPA and the California LCFS programs started to focus more on record keeping, we saw the need for building technology to help our vendors and other vendors track their materials so that they were verifiable to the fuel producer, such that they could then confidently claim the various government incentives. So in 2016, we started exploring that. By 2019, roughly, we had a software program that was being used by a few companies in the U.S. From 2019 to 2022, we capped that program at 10 collectors. And moving into 2023, we're now launching our second generation of that system, which will be open to everybody. It's called Route Simplified, for helping people with their UCO routes and record keeping. So that's kind of the history of what we've done. I'd say trading has been our biggest business historically. Software is something we're really excited about now. And at the foundation of it all, we like to consult for businesses and kind of help them when we can. Okay.
Really interesting. So, Kristof, you had said that you work with companies in multiple ways. So you really have a unique full view of challenges they face. And a few of them are EPA record keeping disputes, increased grease theft, and consolidation. Can you give us a rundown of these main challenges and how you help companies overcome them?
Yeah. Those are a few of the most recent, maybe headline-catching issues. The EPA record-keeping dispute is not new, but it's kind of reached a head. Theft, again, it's not new, but it comes and goes as far as its severity. Consolidation, same thing. I want to come back to those things, but a little bit that we do for companies before maybe these particular right now issues So we like to work with small and medium-sized businesses early on to structure their companies as far as getting their software running, getting them scalable, professional, so that they can really grow. So prior to the point where they're selling the product and worrying about these other things, that's where our consulting division focuses. But as far as today's latest, greatest challenges, this EPA record-keeping dispute is definitely at the forefront. Clean Fuels and EPA are in a legal battle right now. Essentially, the issue is that there were a few lines in some EPA regulations that imply that the fuel producer needs to keep records that are more detailed than they previously thought they needed to keep, in my opinion. And that's on the federal side with the RFS program. And there's a concern that some of the oil recyclers are not willing to provide that because it's a conflict of interest of their, confidential business data. Essentially, some people interpret the ruling, or perhaps the EPA interprets the language as the fuel producer needs the exact details of the collection. So where did it come from? What was the address? What was the date? What was the amount? And that's all well and good. And actually, I think that's the direction the industry is going to have to move for a few reasons. However, right now there's a challenge in that a lot of the big fuel companies have now also purchased recycling companies. For instance, Neste owning Mahoney, or Diamond having a joint venture with Darling, and there's others as well. And so when you're selling to one of these companies and you're a small to medium-sized recycling company, maybe you service a couple cities, a couple states, what have you, usually you have maybe 20% of your clients that are giving you more than half of your volume. Those are your most valuable clients. That's confidential business data. You don't want to hand that over to your competitor.
Right.
And so that's the challenge that they're going through right now, is how do you both maintain accountability in the supply chain while not just completely giving away everyone's data to their competitors.
Yep.
So that's what they're trying to figure out. On our software side, we have some pretty interesting ideas of how to solve that problem. Be happy to go into that if you want, but that's kind of the crux of the EPA record-keeping dispute.
Okay.
On the theft side, that problem is recurring in this industry. It's a big problem. We take it very seriously as a trading house. We don't buy from companies that we don't have transparency of their supply chain, transparency of where their oil comes from. The majority of our vendors choose to use our software, and also many companies that are not our vendors also use our software. But this theft issue, especially when prices are high, is a really big problem. I mean, back during the prior oil boom, when crude was $140 a barrel or what have you, it became a big problem. When prices crashed, it faded back a little bit. And when UCO's in the 20s or 30s, the theft is under control. But now the UCO and the bean oil complex, the vegetable oil, animal fat complex has nearly doubled since COVID, or in some cases more. The theft issue has reared its ugly head to an extent that's pretty impressive in some of the larger markets. Thankfully, this is more of an urban issue than a rural issue, at least in our experience with our clients. But in some of these big cities, the amount of theft is unbelievable. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars a week.
Wow.
If not more. I mean, I'd have to run the numbers for you. But it's substantial. So, I mean, it is a problem. It hurts our vendors. They get a lot of damage to their containers, a lot of theft. And so it's also our hope that some of the software solutions that we're creating on the Reiter software side, eventually, as they penetrate the industry more, cover more of the collectors across more of the country, hopefully we're going to be able to make it harder and harder for these thieves to do what they're doing, because we do track their theft. We give all sorts of feedback to our users. Hey, these are the accounts they're stealing from. This is how much it's costing you. And as we get more penetration in the industry, we should get more and more visibility, which hopefully will help us to continue squeezing that element out. It's something we've tried really hard to do. It's definitely something we want to help with where we can.
Mm-hmm.
The final thing you mentioned is consolidation. I don't know if it's a problem so much as a part of the business cycle.
Right.
Seems like every however many years when the prices boom or bust, you get a consolidation and startup cycle.
Mm-hmm.
When things are profitable, the last cycles companies get bought up and maybe new people want to get in because they see the profit. So it's a cycle, certainly, on that.
I got it. Okay. So, your bread and butter is fats, oils, greases trading. Can you talk about growth or demand or any trends you're seeing? I understand it's been a tight market.
Yeah, there's only so much used cooking oil in the U.S. There's only so much in the world. So as these various programs, LCFS, incentivize low CI feedstock, there's only so much of it to be had. As far as overall demand, as long as the demand mandates continue to increase, we are probably going to see a tight market in everything. Certainly bean oil is the 500-pound gorilla that drives things. Palm oil internationally is also a major factor. So as you see those prices move, you can expect that the used oils, the recycled oils are generally following that same path. Mm-hmm. And, if you look at the soybean oil chart lately, especially just the last 2 weeks, we've tried to go back to our all-time highs almost. I mean, we're back in the 70s where it looked like we were about to break down out of the 60s before Russia's escalation of taking out more infrastructure in Ukraine tightened that market a bit and certainly caused some global angst. But you look at these markets internationally right now and domestically, and the veg oil and the fat complex, like you said, is very tight. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, generally, the cure to high prices is high prices. However, there's a lot of variables in that. I mean, is it truly a high price, or is the currency just worth less? Is it high price, or have we destroyed our international supply chains, so this is the new normal? And there's a lot of variables there, and I don't pretend to know all the answers to them, but it's definitely stuff we try to watch so that we can advise our clients on how to trade. I mean, that's a big part of what we do as a trading house. We're not the biggest. We're not working with everybody. We try to be more of an advisory firm to the clients that we do work with as far as advising. Now might be a good time to sell. Now might be a good time to hedge. Now might be a good time to hold. That's kind of the relationship we try to have with our clients.
Got it. So let's talk about your software just a little bit more. It makes collector's job easier in several ways. I think we've probably covered some of them. Are there any others that we haven't discussed that you would like to mention?
I mean, on the software side, while it's great that you're in perfect compliance as far as your record keeping, the biggest upside to the users of that software is as a growth tool. I mean, if you're a small or medium-sized company and you're looking to scale, technology is critical. Once you put this in everybody's hands, and you have oversight over your operation, increased productivity, more optimized scheduling and routing, then you're not afraid to grow. So, I mean, I guess the only thing I would try to throw out there is that, if you're a small and medium-sized company looking to scale, that's really what we built a tool for. And as a byproduct, you have great compliance.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we could go down so many rabbit holes with what we're talking about here. I just want to open it up. Is there anything else that you want to mention before we wrap things up?
Well, I'd like to thank you for having me on. And certainly, if there's any questions that you have on these subjects, be happy to always follow up with you and come on again.
Yeah.
But really, I think this is a cool thing you guys are doing. Hopefully it gets good traction and can be a conduit for kind of talking to the industry and getting everyone on the same page to address some of these challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And I invite our listeners to reach out to you, if they have any more questions about your company. So with that, I really want to thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, Kristof. It's really been interesting, and I've really enjoyed it.
Really appreciate it. If anyone wants to get a hold of us, you can reach our trading division at reitertrading.com, REITER, or any of our software products at reitersoftware.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. And to our listeners, hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.